yellow's attacking team, right? Green's defensive team, right? So the yellow team comes over here, right? And normally they'd keep going this way, but the fact is, green team can't see them, and yellow team knows that hey, when people make this high ground, the defensive team normally rotates, and they normally rotate like the blue, right? In which the Ryan's over here and the Bap's over here, and the rest of the team's here. So now what yellow team will do is when they're here, they'll stop and they'll come back here and they'll push in. And when they push in here, right, they're able to go on the back line. Okay, now I'm gonna go into two advanced things, but I'm doing it not because I want you to focus on it. It's just something creative, and I think it'll like get your juices going if you ever play Brawl and you want to be fun and spontaneous. Because I think that's amazing part of Overwatch is being like creative. I don't believe again Overwatch is a textbook game. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do that is just fun. So okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say we're playing here. I'll do this first. So any of you guys know what rotation baits are?
It's where you rotate. Pretend you're gonna rotate somewhere, but then you turn back and go the other way.
Okay.
Like Busan, that one map where everyone always baits.
Yes, mecha base. Do you guys know what Charlie's talking about? Blinky, blank.
Huh?
Okay, here.
We bait that sometimes ourselves.
Okay, so here, so I'll give you an example here. Okay, the enemy team is playing over here. You decide you guys want to rotate over here. Now, when you're here in this little area, this is what I like to call it's called a rotation bait. Now, when you're in this decision, when you go here, what does blue team think? Like, where do they think you're going?
You're gonna go right.
Yes, so they think you're gonna do this.
You can stay left.
Okay. Okay. You're wait. You're going a little ahead, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. But where can you actually go? And once you come here, right? What are the pathing options when you first get there?
Stairs, or
you can go here, here, or you can also double back, right? Now, why does this work? Why does this concept work?
People are dumb.
See you.
Yes, they can't see you. People are dumb. they can't see you, right? And when they can't see you, they have no idea where people are going, right? So and they sort of assume, right? They assume, hey, they're going this way, then they're probably gonna go over here. That's because that's what most people do, right? Now I'm gonna give you another example before I come back to what you said, by the way, with Bakri. When you play over here, okay, let's say you're playing over here, you see an enemy team rotate like this, and you go here. What do you expect them to do when they start walking up here? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Charlie. What? Blink you said spam?
I said spam, yes.
Okay. You guys don't expect them to like turn, try and flip the map?
Oh yeah, well yeah. I thought you meant like right at this where they.
Oh yeah, well yeah. So sorry. So like yeah, they'll rotate. Like, do you agree this is what they'll probably do? This rotation?
Yeah, yeah.
And their concept of yes. Go ahead.
Wait, we expect them to rotate? I always expect them to drop point.
Okay, sure. Expect them to drop point. That's fine. So now my point is, normally when someone goes high ground, they're trying to flip the map. But sometimes what they'll do is they'll come over here and they'll wait in here, and they'll wait for you to rotate. Why are they waiting for you to rotate?
So then you can position your backline to where they can still engage on them, or.
I think you're saying.
If I was playing BAP.
Yeah.
If I was BAP, I would go towards their spawn, which is like basically you'd make it open space. If they go right, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I think so. So here, let me finish the thought. So yellow's attacking team, right? Green's defensive team, right? So the yellow team comes over here, right? And normally they'd keep going this way, but the fact is, green team can't see them, and yellow team knows that hey, when people make this high ground, the defensive team normally rotates, and they normally rotate like the blue, right? In which the Ryan's over here and the Bap's over here and the rest of the team's here. So now what yellow team will do is when they're here, they'll stop and they'll come back here and they'll push in. And when they push in here, right, they're able to go on the back line. This is another example of a rotation bait. Does that make sense to everyone?
What if the enemy team's dumb and doesn't rotate? Then
they just chill and then they can do the same rotation. They can rotate over here and stop and come back this way. Right? If enemy team doesn't rotate, that's also fine because then you get high ground, right? So
based.
Okay. But yeah. So anyone questions about rotation bait? Okay, I'm gonna take it one step further now.
Oh.
Their Ryan's here. Your team rotates in here. When you make this rotation, they also like are sort of they're like assuming something. What are they assuming?
Can you repeat your entire
Yeah,
statement? I'm sorry.
you're good. So like the enemy team is playing here, right? You go,
Yeah.
you're blue, you rotate, and you start coming over here. And the enemy team comes over here. Yellow team is assuming something when the fight's about to happen.
That
you
everyone
all
is there.
rotated.
Yes. Wait, what did you say, Blank?
The same
That
thing.
you all rotated.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, that everyone's there. But the fact of the matter is, everyone doesn't have to be there, right? It could be 5 people, just like Blinky said, and a McCree could come back here and pinch. Like he'd come behind and start shooting them. Or a May could literally come behind and start freezing their entire team, or throw May ult, right? Like, so this is again like a pinch play. It's like sandwiching. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Last advanced thing I want to talk about that I think is quite important. So, when you window, what normally happens? One of the basic CD that gets countered.
Wall, amp.
Wall, amp, so they play corner. So let's say we're playing over here. Our Ryan's here. This is a corner. Shield. Let's say we've got. Let's say we've got our BAP. Okay. And we're looking at a window here. We window. Enemy team is over here. What will they do if we window?
Back up.
They will back up. You guys already know that. They will back up over here. If we know they're gonna back up with window, what should we do? How can we be smart?
Could wall them off and then window.
Yes. So well, we could wall them off then window. That's actually pretty smart. You could wall first then window. You could also just window and then wall. But if you wall them first, then they could still counter wall though, right? And so here's the problem. So if you wall them here, right, and then you window, and then they wall after, whose wall dies first?
Yours does.
Okay, so is that useful?
No.
Okay, so you're on the right track though. So we want to wall their rotation. If we know they're gonna kite here, how do we make it so we can wall second, but still get this wall off?
You could. Could you like bait wall, like send Ryan in aggressively and then let him get walled and then?
No, think about clever positioning.
Yeah,
We
we
have-
just have the May on the left.
Yeah,
What about just
just-
Kree flanking?
yeah, yeah. You guys are both getting it. So like you essentially maybe have your like maybe McCree over here if you want to get creative. You can have your May over here and have them hide. And what happens is, when you window, the enemy team is just going to inherently assume that the May or Kree is here, because guess what? People don't scout. So, and also, if guess what? To be honest, as soon as the window happens, they have to wall. If they don't, then they get rolled by window, unless they use speed DM or lamp, which either like speed DM is good, but if they lamp, that's great for you. But yeah, so then they will May wall, and then your May isn't behind here, so your May then can wall them off. And then your Kree's pinching, so your Kree can pinch your speed boost, and you just kill them. Now, one thing I'll say is when you have both DPS sort of hiding, that's a bit much. Why? Because then you have 4 people here. They might get it's a little obvious, right? But so preferably only have like one flanking person. Does this make sense though? This concept?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. Here. Okay. How many times have you sort of played over here, like Ryan? And like BAP, McCree, Lucio, whatever, and you window them, right? And enemy team's over here. Where do they go?
Into the corner.
It's that little.
Into that corner. So if you know they're gonna kite here, right? And I know I don't think you have a flex DPS right now, because right, Blinky's a hit scan, but it's fine. Hopefully they'll watch us whenever we get one. But like well, I guess that's if Kiki does off tank. But yeah, so but when they go here, right? What's something you can do positioning wise to like do something?
We can wall that off for them.
Yeah, we can wall that off, right? Because we know they're gonna wall off our window, okay? But then our May can't play here anymore because they're gonna wall off our window. So where does our May play?
You go left.
Yeah,
Could
you
go
can.
inside there.
Yeah, just like hide. You could hide here. You can honestly also hide inside here, actually. And when they try and come in, you just wall like that, and that works. Or you can play over here and you can wall like this, and then speed, push, pinch. Make sense?
Yeah.
Now, one of the biggest thing
Yep.
I'm going to mention is notice this distance here is not big enough for them to wall the full thing. So you're actually able to speed and go through. Now, if you do this plan like over here, it's a little shittier. Why is it shittier?
Because
Big
the wall's
wall
the
jump.
full.
Yeah, a wall will block everything off. So like let's say like the enemy team kites in here and like your May like I don't know like plays over here and like walls them. it's going to take some time to break this wall and then push forward. And even though you wall second, you might still get value, but it's just a little bit harder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so that's like a cool thing I just wanted to explain to you guys, where it's like, we know we're going to wall and we have point control. We don't have to set up so linearly. We can have our Mei play out an angle. We can have our Kree flank, right? Like let them, let them, if they're not scouting, let's punish them for it. Okay.
All right, so I want to talk about two more like topics that are sort of a bit more advanced in Brawl. One of these is pinching, and the other one is sort of like concept of Dva Lucio Dives. So first I'll sort of go into pinching really simply. Let's say your enemy team is sort of on defense and they're holding here, as most teams do. Ryan, Diva, Mei, Kree, Lucio, App. Now, the concept of pinching sort of goes down to Brawl basics and sort of the fact of your team being very fast and sort of on the same page of what you want to do, and it makes it very hard for the enemy team to react. So, in essence, whenever your Ryan's playing, you only need your Ryan and Mei to play together, because if they push your Ryan, your Mei counter walls, and or your Mei gets a wall and your Ryan pushes off that. And then normally you need a Lucio speed to sort of help them close space, especially if they are if they have a decent amount of space to cover. So if they're pushing like this, that's a decent amount of space, they're going to need speed. Ryan needs speed because he has to be able to get in cleave range, Mei has to be able to get in freeze range, whereas Diva has fly, Lucio has speed, and then McCree has range damage, and Bap has range damage as well. So now what you'll do here is a simple pinch. Well, you do something like this, and then Bap will sort of be here. So you'll have your Diva Kree push like this, and you'll have your Ryan, Mei, Lucio push like this, and you'll sort of sandwich the enemy team to the point where the enemy team doesn't really know where to react. In most enemy Reinhardts, they'll sort of mirror that enemy Ryan, but when they do this, all of a sudden a Diva Kree will sort of push around this corner, and they might be able to catch out someone like an enemy Kree or a Bap, or maybe just even the Lucio or the Mei, or even get the Reinhardt and stun the Reinhardt and do a shit ton of damage to the Reinhardt to the point where that your Reinhardt has an advantage. So this is sort of the concept of pinching, where you sort of split your team up into these two groups, and they sort of just go really fast and push the enemy team and sort of sandwich them or pinch them. The other thing to understand that whenever you're doing this, the distance between your core, right, which is again sort of where your Ryan's playing, it's not a great color. Yeah, the distance of where your Ryan's playing versus sort of your flankers needs to be it needs to be very small, because your Lucio needs to be able to sort of to some extent help them, but the biggest thing is your Bap also sort of needs to be able to help them. And if it becomes bigger, this distance, then your Bap can't really heal the flankers and your Lucio can't speed them, so they're a bit more on their own. So that's really important to understand. Likewise, this whole thing can be turned around. So if you see an enemy team, pushing like this, and their whole team's like this, Ryan in front, and your Ryan's over here, your Mei's over here, and your Bap's a bit further back, and your Lucio's chilling, and you sort of want to do a pinch, you can just push like that, and just go into them. I'm missing someone here. No, I'm not. Lucio's up there. And the other thing to also think about is focus, right? Like if they see your Ryan first, they're gonna look at your Ryan. If they see your Ryan move in first, they're gonna look at your Ryan. They're gonna match your Ryan first. But if let's say your McCree sort of Diva goes in first, and your Ryan's 2 or 3 seconds later, then they're all gonna the enemy Diva is gonna be smart and is just gonna turn and match these two, and it's not gonna be pretty. And then these guys will push in and they'll sort of win the 5v inherently 4 if you count Lucio and Bap with the Ryan. So because the Diva can soft deny the Diva and Kree to some extent. So it's just sort of important that you sort of care of the timing and you sort of go together and go fast. I want to give another example of this in a different map. Let's go to 8. So let me give you another example. Let's say you're playing Brawl in Rialto. I know it's a weird map, but let's just say you're playing Brawl in Rialto.
Welcome to
So for instance, let's say you're retaking, and you know that the enemy team is, pushing the card. It's around here. Use black for the card. Cart's around here. Their Ryan maybe is over here, and the rest of their team is sort of like around here. So now your team pushes up and sort of like gets ready to push into them. Your Ryan's over here, and you sort of want to sandwich them again, right? So your Ryan and May are together, and this time what you do is you send your Kree, and maybe your McCree plus your Diva plus your Lucio, because your Ryan doesn't actually need Lucio right now because he's holding a choke. Your actually McCree Diva need the Lucio because they need the speed to be able to come over here and pinch, to pinch them. They come over here and they pinch. And they go right on maybe on the BAP, enemy BAP. Say there's like a BAP right here. Go right on the BAP, and then as soon as that happens, these guys push forward, and then they get value. Your BAP's back here. So again, another example of like a pinch play. Note the timing, right, is like crucial because again, if these guys sort of get noticed and they go first and the Ryan isn't pushed, then these guys just again get mirrored by a Diva, or they can get booped away, or maybe the enemy team notices that these guys are rotating and it's like, oh, these there's McCree, Diva, Lucio's flanking, push the Ryan, and then the enemy team might just go really, really, really hard into your core. So the timing in which you do this is very, very important. And obviously you might see like really cheeky plays of like Kree sort of just hiding in certain places. Like you could sort of have your Kree just sort of hide over here, and then your Kree by himself could just go and sort of push and make a play, and then your team just push off that Kree and hopefully get value. I think one of my favorite ones is your Kree goes and flanks, and then you beat aggro, and your Kree gets the beat, and you sort of just like, then your Kree just in the backline just like stunning and fanning the hammer and getting an insane value. All right, back to King's Row. So that was sort of the first concept, is sort of this thing of like you can pinch, and it's quite strong. Where did King's Row go? The next topic I want to talk about is this concept of mini dives.
Now entering King's Row.
Alright, so mini dives. Very simply put, if you look at a Brawl composition, Ryan, Diva, McCree, May, Lucio, BAP. You have two people here who are heavily mobile, which is your Diva, Lucio. And because these guys are heavily mobile, they can make mini dives. And the other question also ask yourself is like, does your team need the Diva? No. Again, your Diva is always marking off angles, right? He's helping your Ryan take space at the start of fights. He's marking enemy McCree. So your Diva is not really needed as much as in mid fights, and your Lucio as well, right? Your Lucio is sort of helping your Ryan take space at the start to get closer, holding chokes, kite back, stuff like that. Once the fight sort of mid fight's happening, he's not fully needed. Also, Lucio's radius of aura is pretty decently big. So what this sort of gets at is you can have Lucio and Diva sort of dive people, and when you play into like different types of Brawl compositions, obviously there's different people you can dive. And in general, when you think about diving people, you want someone who is a squishy. So that's like, like 200 HP target, really low. Plus you want someone who has like what I call like a non-livable CD. So what I mean by that is like, they shouldn't be able to like, cryo. They shouldn't be able to fade. They shouldn't be able to, yeah, those are good ones. Wraith, right? So if you dive Reaper, he's just gonna Wraith away. If you dive Moira, he's just going to fade away. So good targets, right? Sort of for that, essentially end up becoming in Brawl Mirror is McCree, who's a really good one, and the next one would be also sort of a BAP, because BAP would force Lamp, and that'd give your team a pretty significant advantage. Now, disclaimer sort of type of thing, this playstyle isn't really used that much anymore, at least in higher levels, because, well, obviously Sim is run a little bit right now. I'm not gonna go too much into why, but the biggest issue is that people know how to like position around this Diva Lucio dive, and whenever Diva dies, Diva doesn't have jets, which means that like your team really has to commit. And if your Diva doesn't have jets near a May, then the May just freezes the Diva, and then your Diva just gets demeched, which isn't very good. But sometimes trading mech to like kill a Kree or force Lamp and maybe kill BAP could be worth it. But so back to like the whole concept, right? So Diva Lucio can dive on someone. They can go on Kree and they can go on BAP. And a very simple way to go on BAP is you sort of like your Lucio goes in and you boop the BAP up, and then you can sort of like rocket it, and you can burst the BAP in the air honestly before the lap even comes. And then Kree, you can sort of just do this sort of similar concept,
but you can also just try and burst him. And I think another thing to think about is also Hanzo. To be honest, is Hanzo. A lot of Hanzo sometimes, if some team's playing Brawl with Hanzo, will play a high ground like this. And whenever you sort of see like someone by themselves that's sort of a non-mobile target, sort of just chilling on high ground like a Hanzo here or McCree, this is like a very like risky decision for them. And as long as there's no one there really inherently peeling them, like that's a very good time where maybe your Ryan, your core, could push like this, and then your D.Va plus Lucio could go dive and go on this like Hanzo McCree and try and kill them. And then your core could like make it look like they're going hard, or then maybe stabilize after for a second because they don't have a lot of numbers. And then hold space, and your D.Va Lucio comes back, and then you can push even harder after you're up. So something like that is sort of the general premise. And the other thing to keep in mind, right, is this is an example of high ground. What if they're not on high ground? Let's say the enemy team's McCree is like over here, and the rest of their team is here. Ryan, D.Va, May, Bap, Lucio, right? In this situation, you see this Kree sort of pushing forward here, and your Ryan's over here, D.Va, May, McCree, Lucio, Bap, right? And your D.Va's like, oh, I see the Kree, Lucio, can you go? And then Lucio just amps, and like this Kree starts walking forward, and all of a sudden, D.Va, you just flies right in here, blocks the Kree off, you just DM him, he's just dead. And it just becomes insanely hard for that Kree to get value. And think about, again, this situation, this Kree is not next to the team. So the team can't peel him, or the enemy team can't peel him. So it sort of like works like good for quote unquote your team, but I guarantee you there are going to be situations where you might try and even do this when the Kree is in their team or the BAP is in their team, and it's going to be way more tricky. So like for instance, let's say the enemy team is holding over here now, Ryan, D.Va, and maybe maybe their BAP's like all the way over here, right? And their Kree's still over here, but you didn't know the Kree's there. Lucio's here, May's there, and your team's taking space, and you sort of are able to get to this corner, and you're sort of just like, okay, I'm gonna go on the BAP, and you sort of just dive the BAP, and there's a few problems with this. First of all, when your D.Va does this, your D.Va Lucio, you don't know where the Kree is, and the Kree flanks. Now your D.Va can't mark the Kree, so that's bad. So you need to be like careful in terms of understanding where their Kree is before you do this, because if you just go aggressive, then you're 1 second. I'll answer chat after. I flow a little bit. Yeah, so if you just go aggressive without understanding where their possible flankers are, you could like perceptibly get screwed by angles. And the other way to also think about it is this BAP, when you stop right, I mentioned it earlier, when you hit this BAP, you're loose fly, and then May can just freeze you, and then you can essentially, lose your mech. But let's say this Kree's with a team, for instance, so you don't have to worry about the angles now, and you sort of now push in, and you go on the BAP, and your team ints with you. Like, it could work, right? Because what'll happen is the enemy team will all turn, and that could be good for you because your Ryan can run over their Reinhardt, and you're going on the BAP. So guess what? Their Ryan doesn't have heals for a second. Even if it's a split second, their Ryan doesn't have heals. And as long as your D.Va sort of manages DM really well and tries to live, and maybe your Lucio maybe boops the May away or just does enough that like you force their lamp, you try and live, you kill their Reinhardt, then you have lamp advantage. You can keep going, aggressive. Okay. So that's sort of like a cool strategy you can do. Trying to think, is any other Brawl strategies that I'd really want to talk about? There are a lot more, but I think these will sort of add on to the other few that we talked about earlier, and I think this should be like a pretty good basis for like some basic, advanced Brawl strats. Thanks, guys.